Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guest is the wildly talented and charismatic singer, Jeremy Pope. You can currently see him on Broadway in Choir Boy, the beautiful, heartbreaking, innovative, thrilling new play from Terrell McCraney, the MacArthur Grant-winning writer behind Moonlight. Please welcome Jeremy Pope. Let's hear it.
What's up?
I gush over this show. It's one of the great shows, I think. I think it will live in history. It's beautiful, it's innovative, the way that it taps into the history of the subject matter, the way that it feels fresh and contemporary, the way that it's intersectional. It's so now, it's so Terrell McCraney, and so much of that has to do with your charisma and talent as a performer. You are in every scene of this show, almost. You've been with it since 2013.
Yeah.
What did you think when you first got cast in this? This is prior to Terrell McCraney winning an Oscar.
Yes.
So what was it like in 2013 doing the show?
Well, this was actually my first job in New York City. And we were doing it in a smaller space back in 2013, about 110 people a night. And I really didn't know the impact of what Choir Boy was going to be and what it was going to do. You know, I think what is so beautiful about us revisiting it now is I am aware of how special the piece is and how special the Black narrative that we're telling is for people to see in that representation. I think between 2013 and now I've been able to, be auditioning and hustling and things, but really seeing that these works come around every few years, and for there to be a show where the focus is on a Black lead is so special and so important, and I just think that is so beautiful, the story that we're able to tell, and Terrell is just amazing with what he's able to do. He's actually gone off in these past years, and he is heading the playwright division at Yale. So he is having to run an institution himself, and our play talks about that, about these young men in an all-Black preparatory school, So I just think he came back more informed, and he was so specific and clear with this version. It's changed a little bit, for people that I saw it in 2013.
How did it change? If you don't mind
I just think, the themes and the way that he was writing certain scenes, they came back just a little bit different and more nuanced. And I think just what he was able to do as a writer, as a playwright, the spirituals, we've added choreography. Camille A. Brown, who is just incredible.
So there was no choreography.
There was no
2013.
choreography in 2013.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
I mean, the choreography in the show, you've never seen anything like it on stage. It's what you imagine a very natural, casual stomp would be like, but at the same time, it's not natural and casual. It's incredibly choreographed and specific.
Yeah. Camille is a genius. I think one of the most beautiful things I was able to experience in the process of working with her is we were in rehearsal, and first of all, we weren't prepared to dance. Just know that. We thought maybe she's going to come in with, something cute to the left and to the right, but she was like, clear the room. We are about to get it in. So a lot of boys looked very terrified. But what was beautiful about working with her was she had us, it wasn't really an exercise, but she would ask us to come up with moves of grief. We were working on a scene in Motherless Child where we're talking about these boys and them missing their family, and one of them lost their mother. So she said, show me 3 movements of grief. So we all kind of went away and came back with different poses and different things that felt like grief to us. And she was like, those are the steps. So on count 1, you're going to do that. And it was different. And as you watched around the room, you saw this thing kind of come together. And I think what was beautiful about it, or what is beautiful about it, is that we take ownership of the moves. It isn't someone putting something on us, and it isn't a set choreography that she has already planned, but it was something that we created and just further helps us in the storytelling, which is what I think Choir Boy, allows us to do. Is like it has the music, it has the dancing, but it's still at the root of play, and we're able to use these, these mechanics to navigate and push the story forward.
One of the things it makes sense that there wasn't choreography before, because I think what's so thrilling about watching the choreography in this is that not all of you, usually when you go to a play or you go to a musical and the dancing starts, everybody's got dancers' bodies. And that's in no offense to anybody that's in the show. Everyone's, in great shape, but nobody comes out and looks like they've been taking ballet for 5 years,
Absolutely.
They look like fairly normal people who are suddenly breaking into this very rhythmic, beautiful, hard dance
Yeah.
moves.
That comes from the heart. I think all of her material comes from a deep place within. We talked about the opportunity that we have to kind of bring up our ancestors when we're using these stomps and these steps, and that know that we're calling on higher, a higher calling in those moments. So to not be afraid to use your body and to dig deeper. So that's just something special that we are able to do, 8 times a week. And the boys, we love it. That is something we do in our warm-up. We all kind of get together a half hour and go over the spirituals and kind of lock and load.
Before the show?
Before the show, yeah. Because the show, the music is a cappella, so we do need to check in and make sure that, everybody's on key.
I don't like a cappella, and I loved this show.
Yeah, it's a special one, and so we do.
It takes everything that has been kind of, I think, abused and appropriated in our culture for the last 10 or 15 years, whether it's stomp style dancing or a cappella singing, and sort of puts it back in where it feels like it should be, which is in actual heart and soul, and in storytelling.
For sure.
For you, how old were you when you first did Choir Boy?
20.
20
years old.
20 years old. So a few years later, you're doing it again. How does the show resonate for you now?
I think, like I said before, I just know there's so much power and healing in storytelling, and there's so much healing in seeing your story represented. I think, as a young Black artist, I struggled in seeing myself represented. I knew I wanted to be in the arts, and acting was a thing that I enjoyed doing, but it was kind of like, am I just going to be Seaweed in Hairspray or just in The Lion King? Which, no shade, those are great projects, but to have a play that takes the time to ask hard questions that we don't necessarily have the answers to represent these young, ambitious, Black, creative young men who just want to be the best that they can be, but have questions about what it is to be a man, what it is to be a Black man in America, is just so important. I leave the stage door.
What it is to be a gay Black man in a religious context, singing slave songs.
You know what I mean? And still wanting to connect with your brother, still wanting to connect with God and higher power, so while that can be messy, and sometimes, I think in the Black community, as broken as it is, we shy away from those things. We kind of sweep things under the rug because we don't have the answers, but I think Terrell has just allowed us to explore that, to kind of see that, the relationship that Ferris, my character, has with his roommate, who is just a straight young kid who's very comfortable with himself, but wants to offer a space for this young, queer character I don't think we have ever seen. And I think that is so important and so special to know that that exists, and to, just have empathy for these young Black men who are kind of struggling, or who are trying to figure it out, what it is to be who they are.
It's so interesting going from Moonlight, right, which is based on a Terrell McCraney play, or I think a play a loose play. I don't think it ever really been performed, really.
Yeah.
And Jenkins adapted it, but seeing that version of Terrell, where it's a movie and it's very expressive, and it's sort of about the tone, and it's not necessarily about the words, and it's not necessarily about digging beneath further and further in theme and tone. And watching one of his plays, you really get the sense of why he was given a Genius Grant, because he is able to weave in the history of what these characters are talking about and what they're going through into the story in a natural way that I don't think I've seen a playwright really be able to do. I mean, the scene where you start questioning what the words of these songs mean, these spirituals mean, is I didn't see that coming, and it felt like it fit perfectly within the play. How much did you feel like you needed to know about these spirituals when you started doing it? Did you know anything about them?
I did. I mean, I feel like I grew up in the church, so a lot of these songs I know. A lot of these songs I grew up with. And Ferris challenges his students, saying, spirituals, we've been taught that they were, coded messages for slaves that helped them escape. And he is challenging that idea and saying, instead of us saying that's what it is, how about the feeling that you get when you sing these spirituals, when you look over and you see a brother or your sister in Christ singing these spirituals and calling out. That is the strength. And he believes that that is what helped them escape that, so which is tricky, because you are talking about things that we are taught, that we preach about in the church, and to kind of question that. But I think, again, what Terrell does so beautifully is he just asks questions. He puts it out there. I feel like a lot of the time he's not necessarily commenting on the social climate or what is happening out there in the world, but he's speaking from experience, things that he's felt, the questions that he has. I read somewhere he said the things that keep him up at night. And as selfish as it is, those are the things that he presents in his plays. He wants people to kind of experience that and kind of ponder on those things as well, and I think that's just what he's done with Choir Boy. He's talked about a lot of things that he's gone through and that he's felt, but also what's really cool about working with Terrell is we'll be in scene work and rehearsal, and, if a scene isn't landing a certain way, he'll ask me, what do you need? What do you need to get to where you're trying to go? What do you want to say there? And he's just collaborative in that way, which is just really cool and dope to have around. Terrell is like my ace, my number one. I call him, text him, whatever. He's always around. Yeah, I literally texted him yesterday, like, when do I see you? He's like, I'll come tonight. And he just came to the theater and just gave me a hug, and that's just what I needed. I just needed to know that he was good and check in with him. And he's off to Sundance because he's working on so many other projects, but he makes time for us, and he's really there for us. And I found that was just so incredibly special to be working with him.
How was Ferris described in the text, and how was it brought to you?
I think in the text, originally it was an effeminate, young, ambitious, smart. Those were like all words that they used to describe him. But I think, kudos and thanks to Tripp and Terrell, but they kind of allowed me to just explore the colors of Ferris. I don't think he is stereotypically one thing. I think there are so many dimensions, as there are to all of us as human beings. And I wanted to explore that. I wanted to show that. I wanted to show, the lovable side of him, but also the side of Ferris. Why'd you say that? He crosses the line. I think you have this play. If Ferris didn't want
defense mechanism. Yeah. You can see that. That's the way that he defends himself.
For sure.
That stops people from hurting him.
Exactly. And there's this idea that if Ferris wanted to exist in this institution and not, seize power or ask for a place of, a position of power, he would probably be okay if he just kind of sat there and didn't really say anything. But Ferris is challenging the system. He's challenging the institution. He is asking for things. He feels like he deserves those things, and that is the conflict, So we got to kind of go into those colors and play with that, someone who is still questioning and still, asking for permission to kind of exist somewhere, but will do whatever he can to kind of, to be able to do that.
It's such a brave performance because I think for so many decades, gay male characters were portrayed with like a stereotypical femininity.
Yeah.
And that's how they were defined, the gay best friend or this or that character. Yeah. And to present one who is a gay black character who is very effeminate, who is now the lead of this show and is also taking charge and crossing the line a lot of time with people. It's a completely, like the play does with a lot of narratives, it subverts what we know about that character. Did you have any fear going into it of portraying a kind of an effeminate gay man? Were you worried about stereotypes of any kind?
I think 20.
Once you read
20. No, I think
it's like you're
no,
fine.
Yeah, but I think 20-year-old Jeremy was. It was like I said, my first job. You were kind of like, what is this thing that I'm going to dive in? But as we got into the experience and just working with Terrell and reading the play and the space that it creates for so many young black men, it's just so important. I knew that this is something I have to be a part of. And again, leaving the theater and the messages, the emails, the DMs of people just thankful that they were able to see themselves and hear, their story told. And the healing that they were able to get, young, old, I think that is just so beautiful. And that is why I do what it is that I do, with the power of storytelling.
Again, to hear that people got the healing that they got from it, That's so unbelievable to me and fascinating because what the play does again is subvert the idea of the happy ending.
Yeah.
It's building towards this ending. I don't want to give anything away if you haven't seen it, but it's building towards this ending, and you think there's only one way for this thing to go
To work itself out.
to
Yeah.
work itself out. And for me
Yeah.
to walk away from the theater happy or satisfied, because if it goes the other way,
You're in
I'm
shambles.
gonna be pissed
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
But it doesn't go that way.
Yeah.
It does go the other way, but he finds a way to subvert it in a
Yeah.
way so that I was thrilled. I was devastated and I was thrilled. I don't think I'd seen a work of narrative art do that well.
I know, yeah, without giving away, it as hard as it is and the struggles that Ferris has to face, he's going to be okay. You know, he's going to push forward. He knows what it is to fight and to be strong. And yet again, it's another opportunity where he can smile and be strong, you know. So,
How did you guys work that ending out when you
well,
first started doing the show?
interestingly enough, in 2013, it ended differently.
You saying?
It ended differently. It ended
No.
it ended in the way you wanted it to end.
Did it really?
It did, you know. But I think
That's
again,
one of the ways it changed?
that is one of the ways that it changed. But I think again, revisiting it 5 years later, and the climate of what our world is, and just in
Blew my
reality.
mind, by the way. You blew my
I blew
mind.
it. Yeah, it's off. You know, but
I'm done.
in reality, you know, like you said, that what happens to Ferris, how he has to push forward, that is more accurate. That is more truthful to what would happen, what is happening. You know.
So what did you think when you got to do 6 years later, you come in and you start rehearsing and the end is different? Or did he come up with the end while you guys were rehearsing?
It was more like Trip, you know, because in the book it doesn't really say it doesn't, in the play it doesn't necessarily say specifically, at least the version we had at the time. It was kind of like you could interpret it to be whatever you wanted it to be, but Trip, our director, was like, I have this vision. I want it to not end in a way that is, you know, positive and like, oh, everyone's friends again. You know, it ends in a way where you're like, dog, that wasn't too nice, you know. But Ferris turns and he smiles, and you know in that moment, or you hope to know that he's going to be okay. And I
Never
think
stop fighting.
he'll never stop fighting. He'll never stop fighting. And that, to me, is storytelling. That is beautiful. That is magical. And to hear the audience gasp every night when it goes to the blackout, I'm like, they were with it. You know, you're gauging as you're acting through the scenes where the audience is every night. But that is one of those moments. It never fails. You know, it is a huge audible gasp from the audience because I believe they were holding their breath to, you know, wonder what would happen. And you see that and you're like, God. And a part of you is heartbroken, but a part of you is like, I saw that smile. He's going to be okay, you know.
It's everything that a great piece of art should do, which is present a duality.
Yeah.
You know, it's not one thing. It's not a happy ending, but it's also not a sad ending. It's somewhere in the middle. Yeah, it gives you the same satisfaction that you would get from the happiest ending the play could have. We have a limited amount of time. We spent most of it on Choir Boy because it's incredible. But you have another show coming in March as well. This is crazy. They basically slotted Choir Boy in between the time that you were going to be doing this other show. Tell me about this other show.
Yeah, so I'm doing Ain't Too Proud, the Temptations musical. We have started rehearsals and cast recording, so I am currently doing double duty right now.
You're rehearsing
I'm
and
rehearsing
doing
during
that?
the day, and then at night I'm doing Choir Boy.
That's crazy because Choir Boy
insane.
requires an incredible amount of stamina.
Yeah. I'm
How are you here? Thank you for coming here.
I'm doing the best I can. I'm going day by day. You know, every day is, are you good? Are you eating? You know, my mom tunes in. She's texting every morning just to make sure I'm still here and with us.
Taking your vitamins.
Taking my vitamins, you know, my voice teacher. It's all the things, but it's, I've said, I feel like champagne problems. You go from having no jobs to all of the jobs. And I'm just so excited and grateful to be able to do these two plays, which Temptations is incredible, written by Dominique Morisseau, another MacArthur Genius Award winner. She is incredible, from Detroit, again, writing from the heart, writing from what she knows, talking about these, you know, young men who paved the way for history, you know, American history, music history, the civil rights movement. It's another beautiful play that I get to do with 5 other brothers and a bunch of amazing cast, some of the best people I've ever met, some of the most talented people I've ever met.
There's a moment in Choir Boy
where we have, Camille, our choreographer, was like, this is kind of Temptations. I was like, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. So, yes.
The partner that I was with turned to me during it and she goes, what if that's the cast for the Temptations musical too?
Exactly. So we start performances in the end of February, I think 2 days or 3 days after I leave Choir Boy.
3 days after you leave Choir Boy,
Yeah.
you start performances, previews
Yes.
for.
Ain't Too Proud. Yeah. Those days are just so that I can rehearse, that I can practice on the stage, tech the show. It's all crazy, but
But it feels like it's working.
It's working. It feels like it's working, and it's gonna work. It's gonna be great.
What does it feel like to? February is Black History Month,
Yes.
and you are currently in the process of performing what I think is a play that will go down in history, that is about about the Black experience, but
Yeah.
specifically an intersectional idea of the Black experience, one that we rarely get to see. And you're about to jump into another show that is Black history.
Yes.
It's The Temptations. What does that feel like?
I couldn't have dreamt this any better. This was my Broadway debut, and to be able to debut in a play and then a few days later debut in a musical, it's just incredible. I think I'm at a loss for words a lot of times when I really have to explain what it feels like. But I feel so honored. I feel the responsibility. I'm so excited to be able to tell these stories and to pave the way for the young Jeremys out there who are looking for representation, who are looking for their stories to be told. I mean, Temptations was music I grew up on. My dad kind of forced me to listen to. So I always knew about the Temptations, but to be able to bridge, the young generation and the old generation together with music that is still living, that we still know. My Girl is still, people still know that song and rock with that song. So it's just really, really incredible and really special that I'm able to do this season.
Well, Jeremy, I can't tell you enough how much I loved Choir Boy.
Thank
I
you.
think it's one of the great plays, and it was such a pleasure to get the chance to watch it and to get to talk to you about it. And I'm very much looking forward to Ain't So Proud, the Temptations play.
Musical,
Do
absolutely.
we say the Temptations musical?
We say Ain't Too Proud.
Ain't Too Proud.
And then we give it a couple beats, and then we say the Temptations, the life and times of the Temptations.
The Life and Times of I like that
Yes.
more than the Temptations
Yeah,
musical.
the life and times of the Temptations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Jeremy Pope, everybody, give him a big round of applause.
Yeah.